But my hope will never die.
Yo, what's going on, ladies and gents? And today, my friends, we have the very special video that I have been thinking about and planning for quite a long time. And today, we are doing the 1,000 subscriber special, and this is all thanks to you guys. I wouldn't be here in any shape or form if it hadn't been for you guys, giving me all the support and stuff. So today, we have got quite the doozy for you. I actually was tossing around in my head what I wanted to do, and I have come to the decision that we're going to do two different guides in one video. So we're going to be doing a tank review on the IS-7, and then we're going to be doing a map review on, we're going to do Erlenberg, just because, Erlenberg, it's one of those really, really annoying maps that no one likes playing, and, there's just a few spots that can make it that much better. So, first part, we're going to be doing the IS-7 here, and this is one of those tanks that I can just say I've had a really rough history with it, and it's not one that I actually have in my garage. As you can see, I'm not even playing on my account. I am playing on Nagoid's account. So, we are going to be doing this beast here really quick. There's not really much to talk about, honestly. It's a very straightforward tank, and it's like a computer. There's no like random effects or anything. So you get what you put into it. So first off, let's go over the basic stats here. The IS-7 has 2,100 hit points, or 2,150 hit points, which is the second lowest of all the tier 10 heavies. The 50B only having 2,100. So the health pool is not the strong suit of this tank. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about armor and stuff, but we'll get there in a second. The IS-7 has 2,150 hit points and 5 degrees of gun depression. Actually, no, 6 degrees of gun depression. So it's a little bit better. It's on par with the Object 140 here. But 6 degrees still is not much. But yeah, so at least it's better than the 121. So yeah, but yeah, so it's got 2,150 hit points, 6 degrees of gun depression, and it has a very, very, very interesting gun, to say the least. But we'll talk about that in a second. So let's get into the armor here. You have 150 millimeters on the upper plate, 240 millimeters on the front of the turret, which is this is where the IS-7 shines. 185 on both sides of the turret, and 94 on the rear. And then you have 150 millimeters of side armor and 100 millimeters of side armor. Now, that 150 millimeters of side armor is very deceiving, because the 150 millimeters is actually the side armor right there where all those tools are. Under that spaced armor plate, which is you can see where it like comes off at like a diagonal angle right there, and that like rectangular block, that is all spaced armor right there. And if you shoot it straight on, it's just gonna get eaten up. The effective thickness of that is like 300 plus, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. If you ever see an IS-7, don't ever shoot it above where that little hole between the tracks is. The side armor right in between the tracks right there and right behind the tracks is only 100 millimeters thick. So if you ever see an IS-7 side scraping and he thinks that, oh, I have 150 millimeters of side armor, I can just kind of like swing it out wide. If he's doing it like this, it's going to be really easy to penetrate. Just think of it like you're penning in a VK4502B that's over angling, but you just got to make sure that you can't hit the spaced armor right there, because that is literally the most annoying part of this tank, is that fucking spaced armor right there. The amount of times that you will shoot the flat side of the IS-7 and then just nothing happens because it's fucking Russian is just absurdly annoying. And this is another one of those things that I just absolutely hate about this tank. But the armor profile on the front, as I mentioned, it is 150 millimeters on the upper and lower plate, which is very nice. And you can see there's quite a nice slope there on the lower plate. So if you are looking in the IS-7 flat on right here, that 150 millimeter angle is actually probably around 220, 230 effective right now. But the cool thing about the IS-7 is that the closer you get to someone, and say it's like an E100 and you're looking directly at it, since you're so tall, you're going to be presenting yourself a steeper angle for the lower plate. So this is probably what the E100 is going to see if you're at about the distance we are here. And knowing the E100's awful AP rounds, you're probably not going to penetrate his lower plate if you are presenting him with this angle right here. And the IS-7's bread and butter is face hugging, just because this turret, man, this is the best turret in the entire game. There's no argument at all. This is hands down the #1 turret in the entire game. The effective thickness on pretty much everywhere around this is 300 plus, except for if you hit the turret ring right next to the gun mantlet. That's probably around like 270, 280. So I mean, you do have a chance to pen that with a premium round, but only with like really high tier TDs. You know, things like the T95 shooting gold rounds, or like the T110E3, or just insert tier 10 TD here shooting gold rounds. That's really the only chance you have of penetrating this turret. Besides that little viewport right there, you can actually shoot the part of the ring. You can see there's like right next to those 3 viewports right there that are sticking out. There's actually like a little ring that the viewport sticks out. You can hit that. It is an extremely, extremely small hitbox. So you will have a lot of difficulties hitting that unless you are, of course, face-hugging them, which is honestly the only way you're ever going to hit it in the first place because it is so small. Other than that, if you're face-hugging them, they have no shots at your lower plate, as this tank does have a pike nose, as you may have noticed. That's another issue with this tank, with armor-wise, is that if you are, you know, driving directly at someone, you are unangling your lower plate, but if you do angle this tank, you're unangling the pike nose. So that flat piece of armor where that cable eye hook is right there, that becomes unangled and a lot easier to penetrate. So the general rule of thumb is that the IS-7 is probably one of the best brawling tanks in the game, just because it's such a bitch to deal with. I know when I see this thing, if I don't penetrate it reliably with AP rounds or whatever standard rounds it is, I'm loading gold, because I don't want to lose any HP to this fucking tank because it's so annoying. But the lower plate, at a distance, it is very easy to penetrate, but you will have to be very cautious when you are in a brawling situation, because if he does to get really close to you, keep in mind that lower plate is going to get extremely angled and you're not going to be able to penetrate it. And then pretty much your best bet if he's face-hugging you is to either go for that viewport on top there, which is very, very dodgy, or you can just load gold rounds, and if you're looking at him directly, shoot the cable on the farthest part of the cheek over there on the right or the left. You can see where the cable loops around, right towards that little like headlight on the side of the tank right there. If you can see what I'm talking about, this little area right here, right where the cable loops around. That's your best bet. If he's face hugging you, just load a gold round and shoot it right there. You'll probably penetrate it, unless of course he turns left or right, and he angles the pike nose more, and it'll just bang. It'll just bounce. This tank is just so frustrating to shoot at, and I find that most people have the same opinion. You know, the IS-7 is one of those things. It's not really scary at a distance because the gun is just so abysmal in those situations, which we'll talk about here in a second. But when you're really, really close, this is a very, very scary tank to deal with. But yeah, so let's hop into the modules. You're going to see plenty of the armor in the 2 replays that I have for you. So yeah, so let's get into the modules here. So the IS-7 has a 1,050 horsepower engine, which is very, very, very good. You actually can get up to speeds upward of like 65, 70 kilometers per hour with this tank, but that's only when you're going downhill or just on like a slight decline or anything like that, just because the ground resistances of the IS-7 they're so high that they really do prevent you from using that 1,050 horsepower engine and putting it to full force. But we'll do the gun last, and then it has a 28-degree track traverse speed, which is not bad, but as I just mentioned, the ground resistances are really, really bad. So turning on, you know, like medium terrain and medium terrain and soft terrain is really rough with this tank. But you know, on city maps, this thing turns pretty quick. But yeah, so the turret, I just went over the armor. Traverse speed 25 degrees, not too impressive, not too bad. And then you got your standard 400 meter view range with the, it's just pretty standard for every tier 10. And then you've got your 720 meters signal range, which is pretty low for tier 10, but I mean, honestly, the signal range really is not that big of a deal. But I want to say the greatest enemy of the IS-7 is its gun, just because it's a very, very annoying gun. If any of you have ever used, well, I mean, I'm sure most of you guys that are either going for this tank or already have this tank are pretty accustomed to the 3.5, almost 3.5 second aiming time and 0.4 accuracy. It doesn't get any better when you get the IS-7. You know, you go from the IS-8's gun, which is very, very good, as it is the IS-4's gun, and then you go to this thing, which it can be good, and sometimes it'll just absolutely shit the bed. So you've got a 4.38 rounds per minute, which is not amazing. It's a little bit better than the mouse and the E100 stock gun, just because both of those guns have the same alpha, 490 alpha, but you get 250 penetration with AP rounds, 303 with APCR, and 68 with high explosive. But I would not recommend ever running maybe like 1 or 2 high explosive shells with this tank, just because you only get 30 rounds of ammunition. And I found that when I played this tank, in the limited times that I did, because I just got so frustrated with the gun, I would constantly be on an ammo shortage, just because if you want to be like a really, really impactful person in the end game, you really do have to conserve your ammunition and stay alive. And sometimes it's really difficult to do that, just because the combination of your low health pool and artillery and the fact that gold rounds exist just make your survivability a little bit more difficult. But I would like to mention that the 303 millimeters penetration for the premium rounds is actually pretty low on the in terms of like gold rounds for just like tier 10 in general. Like the E100's premium rounds are at like 340 something, 215B like 325. Like it's on the lower end of the spectrum, and that can actually end up giving you some trouble if you are trying to pen like a hold down E100 turret. And that's really like the only situation where it's ever going to affect you, is if you're trying to shoot like a hold down E100, hold down Jaegeru, something like that. It's just really difficult sometimes. But as you can see here, the abysmal 3.4 second aiming time and 0.4 accuracy, it's absolutely brutal. That is the single worst thing about this gun, is that aim time and accuracy right there. It really does hamper the effectiveness of the IS-7. In almost every situation except for when you're up close. So you're going to see that in a few of the replays, and I'm just going to elaborate on it more when we actually get to the replays. But let's go over equipment fit here, because there's pretty much 3 pieces that you're going to absolutely need. As you can see here, here's the main 3: the large caliber tank and rammer, the vertical stabilizer, and the enhanced gun lane drive. I know some people trade the gun lane drive for vents, but my theory is that since it does have a 3.4 second aiming time, that 10% extra to the aiming time, or to the aiming speed, is going to have a higher effect on the 3.4 second aiming time, just because 10% of 3.4 is a lot more than 10% of 2.1 is. So it will have a lot better of an effect on the IS-7 than it would other tanks, such as like the 215B. So these 3 are pretty much essential, just because you want to A, maximize your DPM, B, you want to keep your dispersion to a minimum, and C, you want to make sure that when you are sitting in front of someone aiming, that you don't have to sit there for too long. I found that the IS-7 really doesn't have the ability to just kind of stare at people, unless the guy that you're unless your hold down or the guy that is shooting at you is just absolutely brain dead. So you really do want to minimize that aiming time, and the the enhanced gun lane drive is the piece of equipment I would go with. But if you really want to, you could probably put vents or optics on this. I feel like those are the only 2 other ones that I would ever use. But yeah, these are my main 3 that I use. Well, when I actually did use the IS-7 way back in the day. I can't stand this thing now. But yeah, so let's go over some crew skills real quick, just some like the main 5, like I've been doing in the last couple of videos. Now, Nagrade, or my good buddy Dip, as he was formerly known as Packing Dip, but he doesn't have very many crew skills on many of his crews, just because he's free XP'd to like, I'd probably say 5 or 6 tier 10s within the last like 2-3 months. So some of his crews are lacking. But if I had to pick main 5, I would definitely go 6th Sense, Repairs, Brothers in Arms. Those are like top 3 for everything. But everything else, I would probably go with off-road driving, maybe, and then Snapshot. Just because the off-road driving, it helps those ground resistances, and it'll make it a lot easier for you to turn if you're getting circled, or it'll make your tank just that much more effective when you are in a situation where you're going to have to like turn around and go different directions really quickly, just because the i7 does have really bad ground resistances, and being able to lessen those terrible ground resistance percentages is going to help monumentally when you are in a situation where you're getting circled. But if you aren't going to run off-road driving, then I would either suggest track mechanic, or maybe recon, maybe armor. I do find that sometimes your gun does get hit a lot with this thing. So if I had to pick my main 5, I would go track mechanic, I would go track mechanics, snapshot, brothers in arms, repairs, and sixth sense. Those are my big 5. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the garage review here. I didn't want to make it too long just because this is already going to be a really long video because I'm putting so much into it. So let's hop into the replays. Alright, so the first game I have for you guys, it's really not anything super impressive at all. It actually is a very mediocre game. The only reason I even picked this replay is just because I wanted to showcase how good this tank can be hold down. And this is the map. This is the #1 map for the IS-7. I'm flat out gonna go ahead and say it. This map is just absolutely fantastic for this tank because there's just so many areas where you can just completely exploit how good the armor is, and you're gonna see exactly how I do that. Now you're gonna see here, this is actually me playing in the IS-7. This is when I had it probably about a month and a half ago. When I thought I would give it another chance, but I absolutely just couldn't put up with this bullshit anymore, and I couldn't stand looking at it in my garage anymore. I ended up buying the Foch, so that's why I have the Foch in my garage and not this Russian RNG thing that I really can't stand. But if you guys watched my Himmelsdorf map guide, you are going to remember that I mentioned that the big tank alley here is probably the best spot for the IS-7, and lo and behold, look where I'm going. Just because this is you're gonna see what I said get put to work right here, and not just you taking my word for it. So you're gonna see why the IS-7 is so good in this spot. Now, you're going to want to keep in mind that you don't want to angle your tank when you are front-facing hold down like this, just because you want to keep the maximum angle on your upper plate there. So even if they do hit you with a gold round, you're still going to be able to take it very well. I find that the IS-7 is probably it's probably the best tank in the game for taking gold rounds, just because since probably about probably about 66% of the tier 10 tanks do end up firing heat rounds for their actual premium rounds. So people shooting you in the side is a very ineffective for those people that are shooting heat, just because there's a very good chance that they'll either hit your spaced armor or your tracks. And then frontally, unless they hit the outside corners of the pike nose, they don't really have that good of a chance at penning your upper plate. You know, and then your turret is another story. It's extremely tough. But you saw there, I did actually make a mistake when I was, peeking up trying to get that quick shot off there. But this is pretty much what you're going to be doing. You're going to be brawling in the street, and you can see there's just that abysmal aim time. But yeah, you're pretty much just going to be brawling most of the time, and this is the IS-7 absolutely loves this spot. This is the IS-7's favorite spot in the entire game. I think Erlenberg War has some really good spots for this tank as well. But you're going to see here, this is honestly just me trying to get some damage here, and you saw right there I did actually end up bouncing off of the flush E100 front of the turret. As I mentioned before, the APCR rounds on the IS-7 are very I don't want to say disappointing, but they're not as good as compared to the say like the E100s or like the E5 or the IS-4. Those are a lot more effective than the IS-7's APCR rounds. But you do have to keep in mind that the IS-7's APCR rounds are very good as they are APCR. And you saw right there, I actually did end up penetrating them there. I guess the last time I just got a really bad penetration roll. Unlike the IS-4 and the the E5 or insert any other tier 10 heavy here. The IS-7, in order for you to pen the front of the E100's turret or like the Jaeger superstructure or something like that, you're gonna have to make sure that he's looking absolutely directly at you to get the maximum chance of penetrating. Just because him even slightly angling makes that turret just that much thicker. And you saw there, I got another good penetration roll and penetrated the front of his turret. I don't know, I'm kind of playing this like a bitch, but trying to use AP rounds with this tank when you are going up against like E100s and stuff like that is very difficult sometimes, as when the E100 angles his lower plate, or just any other like tier 10 heavy for that matter, like the IS-7 included, the AP rounds are very dodgy sometimes, and you will get some really shitty penetration rolls. And you saw there that T-57 came up behind me there, and he ended up trying to clip me out, but you saw that the side armor didn't really work as good as I would have liked it to. And you can see here, this is just the T-57 not being able to do anything, and that is the number one thing that you're going to want to do in the IS-7. That right there is what you need to be doing all the time if you can with the IS-7. That is why it is so good, because you can just you literally can just sit in front of them and they can't do anything unless they're smart. And you saw there, that was just an amazing esports shot there. You're gonna get that a lot with the IS-7 just because the gun RNG is just so random. But you can see here we actually are getting up to some pretty good speeds here, like 40, 45 kph. It's a very, very quick tank on hard terrain, any sort of city map or anything like that. And it is also very quick to turn as well. But on hard terrain and soft terrain, which you're going to see in this next replay on Cliff, it does get pretty bad sometimes. And that wasn't really that good of a game. You're going to see here I only did like 4,500 damage. It wasn't that impressive. I just wanted to showcase just how good the IS-7 is in a situation where you are hold down. Now, I mean, it wasn't the best game I've ever had. You implementing that strategy, just sitting on the middle road, hold down. I've had games where I blocked at least 8,000 or 9,000 damage, just sitting there and then just paying off my turret constantly. But you get the gist of it, and you're going to see more of it here. This game was actually very, very disappointing because I did actually end up doing quite well. It wasn't anything fantastic, but it's another one of those gameplays where it just showcases how good the IS-7 is in a hold down position. But you are going to see me go to the middle ridge on the E5, E6 area. That's pretty much where I go on this map in every single tank in the entire game, except for like an E100. Just because I'd go there in an E100 if there's no arty, but if there is arty, you kind of want to avoid the middle of the map, especially in a heavy tank, just because it's free reign for artillery. And you guys know how much I love artillery, so yeah. But yeah, so the IS-7. This is another one of those really good maps for it, just because you do have the ability to just kind of sit in the area where you are in a hold down position pretty much all the time, and you don't have to use any of your gun depression. And sorry about this, I completely forgot this is even in this replay. But you are going to see that the IS-7 it has the 6 degrees of gun depression, which is not awful. But there's a lot of spots on some of these maps, like Steps, Cliff, Erlenberg, have some of these areas where you don't even have to use your gun depression to be in a hold down position. The middle of the map on Cliff is another one of those areas where you can just literally just drive to the left and right, and you'll have the ability to be hold down without even using any of your gun depression. But you're going to see here we have a very questionable team this game. You're gonna see. I really do. I think I'm gonna do Cliff instead of no. I'll do Cliff on the next review, or map guide or whatever. Just because this is one of those maps that I feel is severely incorrectly played, because there's so many inlets, or there's so many areas of engagement here. But I just feel like everybody goes to the wrong areas. But you're gonna see here this abysmal aim time and just awful snapshot there. But yeah, this is that spot I was talking about where you don't have to be in a hold down position, or you don't have to use any of your gun depression to actually be in a hold down position. You saw there that amazing aim time and amazing accuracy, just completely biffed the shot off the side of the M103 there. But yeah, that's a pretty common occurrence. And then you're gonna see here you hit like little tiny slivers of shots like that, and then you get really lucky RNG. Like, I swear to God, it's literally just Russia that has this absurd BS that happens. But you are going to see that another thing I was talking about right there, as I mentioned last game with the AP rounds on the E100's lower plate and stuff like that, I pretty much had the flush lower plate of the E100, and I just bounced straight off of him. Now granted, I don't know if that actually hit his lower plate or it actually hit his upper plate. You never really know with this tank, just because the IS-7's accuracy is absolutely awful. And then this is where things start getting pretty bad, and you're going to see here that's one of what I was talking about earlier. You do kind of get caught between the situation of, do I angle my lower plate so they don't shoot it, or do I just kind of look at them straight on and hope they don't pen my lower plate? You're really going to be in that constant power struggle when you are in a situation like that, just because that E100 had perfect opportunities on my lower plate. As you're going to see, he does again here. Well, this is the other E100, but you see same thing there. You really just can't do anything about it. The IS-7, it's really dependent on being in a hold down position, because the lower plate and the upper plate in tandem are not amazing when they are by themselves just out in the open. Just because it's very easy to exploit the lower plate if you are in a situation where there's no cover, or there's no possibility of you even covering it up. And you don't want to over angle your upper plate, because I find that most people don't actually shoot it, but the smart ones who actually do know how the pike nose works, they will exploit the fact that you over angled your pike nose, and that they will capitalize on that very, very quickly. But you've seen here how I only have around 500 hit points left. That's partially due to the fact that the IS-7's health pool is just so low. It really is a limiting factor, I feel, in the long run, just because you're not really going to be able to take those hits. You saw here I've only taken 3 shots this entire game, and I only have around 100 HP left. But you do see here that I am in the money spot, as I am in a hold down position, and I am front facing them. So the Object 704 really does have no chance of penning me, unless he does load up a gold round and get lucky and shoot right through my upper plate or my turret ring or something like that. But this is the money spot for the IS-7. As you can see here, just a nice bounce there. He can't. There's really just nothing he can do. If you can find a spot like this on every single map, then you are gonna really like the IS-7. Armor-wise, I should say. The gun is another story. But the IS-7 is just one of those tanks that I feel it's not consistent enough for me to like it as much as some people do. So it's one of the limiting factors of it. But do I feel that this tank is Clan Wars viable? I do, 100%. It is very good when you are trying to Zerg rush an entire area. And you are going to see here, I just cut the replay short just because I didn't feel like sitting around and letting you guys, or making you guys sit around and watch all this. But you did see there a pretty bad defeat, and a decent damage payout there, but it wasn't absolutely fantastic. But do I feel that the IS-7 is Clan Wars viable? I do, but it's only good in mass quantities and if you're guaranteed to be in a brawling situation. But overall, I feel like the IS-7 is a very strong tier 10 heavy tank if the odds swing in your favor. I feel like the IS-7 is one of those tanks that's very RNG reliant on its gun and its armor too. As I mentioned before, I feel like the spaced armor doesn't nearly work for me as much as it does for others. And then just when people know how to exploit the IS-7's frontal armor, it's really just not that amazing. So unless you're in a hold down position, the IS-7 isn't really that difficult to deal with. Unless he's at some weird angle where you can't penetrate his lower plate because he's too close to you, and you have no way of penetrating his upper plate because you either have no gold rounds or he's just so good that he's just swinging his whole left and right as you're trying to line up a shot or something like that. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for the IS-7 review. We're going to move into the next part of the video here, which is the map review or the map guide on Erlenberg, which I know this is a very difficult map for some of you guys, but we are going to take a short break here as I'm going to have to record the next part for the map review. Alright guys, so this is the map Erlenberg, and this is one of those maps that I feel that a lot of people really just don't really have a good grasp on, because there's a lot of areas that you can use to your advantage that I feel a lot of people don't. So pretty much going over like the basic part of the map here. So if you get the eastern spawn, I feel like the eastern spawn is the better spawn, just because there's a lot more areas that you can exploit on the western or the eastern side of the map that are of use to you. So pretty much the main like hotspot areas you're going to see is that there's going to be like in the southern part of the map, there's usually going to be those people that are kind of like camping out back here, keeping eyes on this area over here. Usually on an eastern side strat, I would run my medium tanks and light tanks and some heavies to cross over the water here, and then just to kind of engage everybody sitting at the castle. But hotspots for the eastern side of the map, if you are pushing from the west, there's usually going to be maybe like 2 or 3 guys sitting here. Maybe a couple guys here, but the vast majority of the stuff going on the eastern side of the map is pretty much going to be up here near these buildings, and then I find that most people are just kind of concentrated around this area, or just in and around the city area up towards the northeastern part of the map. But if I was to play how I'm playing my T-54 lightweight now, I would bring it probably down across to the water over here, and this is the spot that I usually bring all of my medium tanks. You know, well, within reason, medium tanks that actually have like turret armor and stuff, just because there is this ridge right about here at the K7 area where your hold down, say if you're in like a 62A, but let's just say I'm in a 62A right now, even though I'm a 54 lightweight. This area right here, this is a very, very good spot for combating the people that are sitting on the hill, just because they're gonna have to come over the hill to actually engage you, so you do have really good spots on them. But this is a very good power position. If you find that you don't see anybody coming over here, if you're able to push into this bowl right here, this is a very, 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 very crucial spot to the map on Erlenberg. This is where you're able to breach the entire eastern side of the map if you are pushing from the west. I find that this is the best possible area to have everybody stuck in, because they're just going to have to drive over the hill and engage you directly, and you do have some hold on spots here, and you do have rear shots on the people sitting up by those buildings up there. Now, this is only if you're on standard battle. If you do have the encounter or the assault variant, the base capture for encounter, I believe, is in the middle, and then everybody, the south spawn spawns like in this area, and the north spawn spawns in this area. And that's how the PC map is laid out. That's how standard battle is laid out. Standard battle is very, very, the bases play very little factor. They don't really play that much of a role in the actual standard battle part of the map, or just the standard battle game type. You know, you don't really run into people just trying to cap out on Erlenberg standard battle, just because the bases are literally out in the open, and there's really no cover unless you, of course, you are on this side of the map. There is some cover on the other side of the map as well. But this is another one of those spots that I would like to talk about. This is another one of those areas that you can exploit on the eastern side of the map if you do spawn on the west. If you are feeling really, really antsy and you want to, get a really forward aggressive position, and just really, you want to make it so your team has an extremely higher chance of winning, this is a very, very good spot here. Here at the E6, F6 area, this little complex of buildings right here, you're pretty much safe from artillery and everything else. And you get lights on all of those people just sitting up on those hills over there, as those are very, very, very prominent areas where the enemies are just going to be kind of chilling out, waiting for something to happen. Just because this is one of those maps where people really just don't move much, and in the rare time that they do, this is one of those good spots where you can flush them out. So this is a very good spot right here. And then you do, of course, if someone tries to come and combat you, you do have shots like through this little building right here if they've never seen it before, as well as right here, as you can knock down that little part of the building right there. But this bridge right here, most of the time the bridges are pretty much death traps. You really don't want to ever get yourself caught out in these areas here, like these big fields here. The field over here, these areas around, just like the C4, D4, and then like the G7, H7, around those areas, they're pretty much dead zones. There's literally nothing here covering you at all. There's no cover except for these, buildings over here. But then again, if you move, you're gonna have people sitting on the hills across the map trying to shoot you, and it's just a death trap. You never really want to come over here. Now, this is one of those really interesting, kind of quirky things about this map that you can do if you are in a faster tank. You can actually go under the water here and come up on the middle island here. And, sometimes people don't do it just because it gets really sketchy and, you think you're going to drown. But this is, I guess if you really wanted to cross across the, if you really just wanted to find a way to get across the moat, I guess you could call it here, or this little middle stream here, without actually going across the bridges or those little water areas, this is a very good option right here. This is a very unexpected thing too, as some people don't know about that. That is a very good tool if you are just trying to kind of have the element of surprise and you're in a 1v1 situation. Now, another good exploit for the eastern side of the map, if you do spawn on the west, is if you come over to the A7, A8 area. This entire area, there's a lot of really good hold down spots for combating the people that are going to be sitting on the hill over there. Namely, they're going to be behind that building that's right there, and then right there. There's usually 2 or 3 people just kind of chilling there. So there's good hold down spots here for that. And then as well, there's also this kind of low ground over here that you can get behind. and it is very good for, getting in a forward aggressive position, and you want to be able to combat these guys, but you still want to be able to take cover. And this low ground right here is very good for heavy tanks with good turrets and Russian mediums and just anything that has a decent turret. And then if you are in a light tank, you can actually bring yourself, if you hug the black and white line, you are able to get up in these bushes and trees up here. If you're playing in a lower tier match and they don't have as good a view range as you think, the people on the hill over there, and if you are in a light tank, they will not be able to see you just because you are in a light tank and they have such good camera ratings. This is a very, very good spot. Usually this is where Artie hangs out too. If you do spawn on the west and they have Artie in the east, this is pretty much the Artie spot. So if you are, just kind of, you're on a mission to kill Artie, this is pretty much where they're going to be for the most part. But this is also a very, very good vantage point here. This provides you with, if you are in a tank, say like the STB, and you have gun depression, and you are able to use that gun depression, this is a very good spot for combating those people that are just kind of like sitting on the hill back here. And this entire area is just kind of like, this is pretty much a brawling zone for the encounter mode. You don't really find that many people end up brawling over here, just because since the standard battle flow is so messed up, because the east side spawns here, and the western side usually spawns in the castle area, there's really no fighting in these corridors here. Most of the fighting generally happens at the bridges, and there's mostly people just sitting up on top of these hills here, and as well as down here. So these parts of the map really aren't used to their full effect right at the beginning, just because, or in standard battles, just because the flow of engagements aren't really geared towards the like the 0 line and the 2 line and stuff like that. So you're really only going to have those really good battles and just really intense like hill ridge fighting. Those are really only in the assault and encounter game modes. Now there is a couple spots that I would like to highlight if you do spawn on the east side of the map that you can exploit on the western side of the map. We're gonna drive over there. It's on this G1 hill right here. This is a very, very, very good. This is a very advantageous spot for your light tanks and medium tanks with a lot of gun depression. And I find that it's a very effective method of getting people to back up, just because they'll know that you have a lot of vision when you are utilizing this spot. Now, this is another one of those areas that I talked about when I just mentioned in the IS-7 review that you don't have to have gun depression to use it. This is one of those areas. This entire like open field and on the J line in the H area. This is a very good spot for like a Russian medium, just because you are hold down for the most part, and you don't really necessarily have to. Your gun depression doesn't depend on you having the hold down capabilities. Now, this G1 hill area, this is a very, very good spot for your light tanks, as you do have a lot of bushes and trees here, and usually if you are sitting in this area, you are going to be able to see pretty much the vast majority of that hill, and you may be able to spot some artillery that is sitting up here. If this is the encounter game mode, there's usually artillery right there, and back in the corner over here. This is a very, very, very good spot for, flushing out those people and just getting them lit, and then once they see that they're detected, they'll get really scared and start moving. But for the most part, the castle area is pretty much a dead zone. There's really no areas for cover except for behind this little drawbridge area right here, just like on Himmelsdorf where that little drawbridge was up on top of the hill. This is if this is like a last minute, like you're fighting off, like it's like the Alamo, there's like 2 of you and like 7 of them. This is a good hold down spot for like a heavy tank or just any sort of hold down medium tank. But say you do have control of this G1 hill and there are people pushing you from the hill over there. And you're fighting people on this castle corner right here. This is a very good spot for combating that. You do have hold-on capabilities. I find this is a very good spot for the IS-7 as well. So yeah, that's that. But pretty much most of the fighting on standard battle is going to be in the northern and southern areas. Very rarely do you ever find people battling on the 2 line or the 9 line, where most of the fighting happens in the encounter and assault game modes. Now, if you do find yourself getting pushed out of the castle and you are falling back, this hill up here actually does provide quite a few strategic advantages in terms of like hill convocations and stuff like that. You do have some very, very good spots to peek the castle here. This entire area is very good in general, just for this entire area is just good. It's a very good, like, I'd say it's like kind of like a camping area, just for, if you really want to lock down an area, this is one of the areas on the map that you really want to lock down. But if I had to pick like where I would set all my tanks, as because some of you guys mentioned you'd like to hear more like tank specific areas. So if we were playing standard battle and I was in a light tank, I would be sending my light tank probably over here to sit in a bush somewhere, or maybe down over here around this area, or maybe if I'm feeling really ballsy, push up to here and then light it and then just run away, as well as this area right here that I just mentioned, those buildings that you can sit in. That's granted, you do spawn on the west side of the map. But medium tanks, I would be sending them south most of the time if I am spawning on the west side. On the east side, I'm also going to be sending them south. I find that the north spawn is pretty much a dead zone because, as I mentioned before, this like C2 area where I just was, it offers a very, very good spots for people to just kind of set up shop. And usually when you're trying to push across the bridge, it's usually going to take 6 or 7 of you guys to actually make these guys move or just get scared and fall back, because most of the time when there's only 2 or 3 of you guys pushing over this little area right here along the like the C, what is that, like A3, A4 area, these you are safe from them right here, and you can like kind of like dip down in the water here to not take any damage, but it's very difficult to get out of this area, and it's just really hard to push into that entire like A2, A3 area, or just like the C2 area, just because there's hold down areas here, and then they have the hill at B3. It's very hard to break the spot. So I general rule of thumb, I always push people to the south. It's a very, very difficult. It's hard to defend on the castle's part, just because unless they have people here out in the field, there is some hold down areas over here along the 3 line, like J3, K3. There are some very, very good hold down spots for, you know, like T30s and, you know, just American, Russian stuff just sitting there. There's some very good hold down spots there, but breaking that is very easy if you have arty support and you have some big guns sitting on this ridge over here. Because if you send medium tanks and light tanks here to light these guys, they have no vision on any of you down here. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult for them to defend this side of the map, because there's also, as I mentioned here, over here in the HJ area, there's very good hold down spots. Just like if you can get across this big open dead zone along the J4, J5 line, you're going to be in the clear, because there's a lot of good hold down spots here. But generally, the middle of the map is untouched. I wouldn't really send anything over here unless you're doing that little building thing that I mentioned before. I'd only really ever send like a medium tank or a fast heavy tank or a light tank there. Generally, you're going to want to send your heavies to brawl out this area in standard battle. Maybe take a few of them to cross with you over here. But generally, you're going to send most of your mediums to the south. Arty's pretty much just going to be back in this corner. And then Arty's pretty much just going to be back in this corner as well. Or back over here, generally. But your TDs, most of the time, they're going to be sitting up on these hills here. When I play a TD and I spawn on the east side, I'm usually over here. Or if I spawn on the west side, I'm usually probably doing the same thing back here. I never really combat the north. I know that there are some areas like up here that you can be shooting these people at the buildings over here, and there's also a very good spot right here where you can see the entire like A7, A8 area, which is very good. But you know, generally the north is pretty much just a standstill unless there's like some massive force pushing down. It's generally just really, really hard to break through the north, just because both sides offer so many good spots, like the hill at D9 and the C2 hill. It's extremely hard to break those turtles, especially if they have a really good amount of people there. But that pretty much wraps up the Erlenberg map guide, guys. I don't know if you guys need me to, you know, maybe go more in depth with, you know, specific tank areas, or just specific areas where you would send tanks. I feel like I did a better job this time around of just going through, you know, where I would send most of my tanks, as it's pretty obvious where you're going to send most of your stuff on this map, just because there's so many good areas for so many different tanks. But you know, generally the rule of thumb is that you're going to want to send most of your mediums and stuff to areas of advantage, and not just kind of sitting on the hill like most of the time they do. So that's pretty much it for the map review, guys, and now we're going to go into the special part of this video that I have for you guys, which I think you guys are going to enjoy. Alright guys, so here it is, the one and only lunar mode that, you know, it comes around, you know, from time to time, and it's pretty goofy, I'm not going to lie. I remember the first time this came out, and this was just like just some super crazy funny thing that Wargaming did, and I'm actually really looking forward to the toy tank thing or whatever that they're doing for Christmas. I'll put up maybe like a replay or two of that just because it absolutely looks hilarious. So this is the lunar mode, and I just wanted to showcase or just put this replay up just so I can take some time to thank you guys so much for all the support that you guys have given me. I remember the day that I first started streaming and first like recorded stuff and first put it on YouTube. My initial plans were never to actually even start a YouTube channel. I was really just going to just stream on Twitch and stuff like that. But regarding my internet issues and stuff, since we actually did upgrade to this like supposedly better router or whatever that doesn't actually do anything better than the last one that we had. So I've had a lot of issues with the like internet capabilities and stuff like that. So I haven't been able to stream as much as I would like to. Now granted, if I had like some super FiOS Google Fiber bullshit, I would probably be doing it nonstop every day. But sadly that is not the case, and that is why I do YouTube. It actually was kind of like an accident that I actually put up my first video way back in the day of the Bat Chat review, which was absolutely terrible now that I look at it. So yeah, I will be redoing that probably within the next like week or so, just because I feel like it needs to be redone. But lunar mode here. This is, oh man, this is one of those game modes you just kind of play to take off the edge. This is just it's just a ton of auto aim, a ton of like flying around, zero gravity BS. It's just really goofy, and it's really fun. Just sometimes you're just trying to fly off a hill and just wreck some noob. But yeah, so I do want to apologize. I kind of feel like I maybe could have put a little bit more in the IS-7 review. If you guys have any questions about anything, I will be able to answer them in the comment section. Just about anything specific, but I'm pretty sure I went over most of the basics here. But the Erlenberg map review, I feel like I did a sufficient job, and let you guys please let me know in the comments how I did on that. I feel like it was a lot more specific than the Himmelsdorf one that I did. Now, granted, there's a lot more to talk about on a map with a lot of like hill features and just general stuff like that. So yeah, there's definitely a lot more to talk about when you are talking about maps that actually have like geographical features as opposed to just all flat city bullshit. So yeah, but yeah, guys, so that's pretty much it for the 1K sub special. I just wanted to once again thank all you guys for all the support, and hopefully we can continue to make some pretty dank videos. I'm not planning on like quitting or doing anything like that. I'm still gonna be on the grind, making videos, keeping you guys informed, and just trying to help the communities as that was my goal initially from the start. So thank you guys so much for the 1K subs. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and thank you guys for all the reinforcing comments and all the really good video. It was really helpful, stuff like that. It really does help. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed all the replays and all the effort that I put into this video. I really am looking forward to making more videos and keeping you guys up to date with all the stuff that's going on. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I've said that like 4 times now, and I really need to stop doing that. But this has been Achilles. Thank you guys so much once again, and I will catch you guys later.